So I heard that apparently if you fly to Mongolia in the winter, 4 to 12 hour night bus, drink some vodka, and make it through the night, at that point you'll arrive in a small town feeling pretty horrible. So you stumble into a restaurant, and your friend Jason accidentally eats raw chicken, which seems like a small mistake until later. But this is when a taxi picks you up and takes you to an old Soviet van filled completely with vodka and beer, as well as the scent of poor decisions. Then for the next 12 hours, you head even further north to Siberia, where the highway isn't the highway at all, but instead a frozen lake. And there are mandatory stops to drink the beer bottles that haven't survived the trip. But then it gets dark halfway in, and the highway is now a frozen river, so you're fully off-roading for another 6 hours in the pitch black and negative 30 degrees. So the next logical step is to disassociate completely and have a party with the drivers. When waking up from this dream, you finally make it to an aesthetic A-frame cabin where a local guide is waiting like this was all completely normal. Then he helps you get special permits and begins to take you off-roading for another 3 hours north that feels more spiritual than geographical at this point, to ultimately reach the northernmost living Mongolians in Siberian teepees. But this is when the food poisoning sets in. So Jason spends the night by the fire before waking up to realize there is more off-roading before obtaining the final boss of transportation, horses, to head 4 hours even further north through waist-deep snow in an area filled with wolves. And then you realize having attempted this as your first real horse ride might have been a bad decision. But you finally arrive at a camp of 700 reindeer and their indigenous herders to find out that you're the first ever tourist to make it to this hidden camp that they only use in the winter. And you spend the rest of the afternoon living out your childhood dreams of playing with reindeer and riding them into the sunset. This is when the realization finally hits that the definition of real adventure is truly starting a quest without knowing how it will end, and that those willing to go to the ends of the earth will absolutely find what they're looking for.